I spent 18 years dreaming about Olivia's wedding day. From the moment I first held my daughter in my arms, I imagined helping her choose the perfect dress, sampling cake flavors together, and visiting beautiful venues. I pictured us laughing as we debated color schemes and flower arrangements, sharing those special moments that only a mother and daughter can. I opened a special wedding fund the day Olivia turned 10, adding to it religiously every month, even during the hardest times, after her father left us with nothing but bills and broken promises. I worked double shifts at Memorial Hospital, sometimes going days with barely 4 hours of sleep, just to keep our little family afloat and that wedding fund growing. I sold my grandmother's antique pearl earrings, the only heirloom I had, when Olivia needed braces. I passed up a supervisor position that would have meant relocating when she was in her junior year of high school. Every sacrifice, every extra penny saved, every dream I deferred, it was all for her, for us, for the future I imagined we'd build together, mother and daughter against the world. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. For almost 2 decades, I put Olivia first. I worked nights so I could attend her daytime school events. I learned to sew, so I could create the perfect prom dress when we couldn't afford the designer gown her friends were wearing. I took online classes to improve my nursing qualifications, often studying until dawn after completing a grueling shift, all to provide her with more opportunities than I'd had. Then Olivia met Nathan Kensington during her final year of college. The Kensingtons lived in a different world from ours. Their estate in Hillcrest Heights had its own name, Kensington Crest. Nathan's father, Richard, ran an investment firm that managed portfolios for people whose net worth had more zeros than my annual salary. His mother, Camilla, wore designer clothes to casual brunches and spoke about summering in places as if it were a verb. The first time Olivia brought Nathan home to our modest craftsman house in Cedar Grove, I spent 3 days cleaning, rearranging furniture, and preparing a meal that would stretch my culinary skills to their limits. I wanted so desperately to make a good impression for Olivia's sake. I still remember how Camilla Kensington's gaze swept across my living room, taking in the second-hand furniture I'd lovingly restored and the gallery wall of Olivia's accomplishments. Her smile never reached her eyes as she accepted the glass of wine I offered. Wine I'd spent hours researching to find something acceptable on my limited budget. "What a charming little home," she said, her pause speaking volumes about what she really thought. I smiled through gritted teeth and served the appetizers I'd spent all morning preparing. When Nathan proposed after a whirlwind 8-month courtship, Olivia called me screaming with excitement. "Mom, I'm going to be Mrs. Nathan Kensington," she squealed into the phone. "Can you believe it?" I cried right along with her. Tears of genuine joy mingled with relief that the wedding fund I'd nurtured for years was finally ready. It wasn't Kensington money, but it was substantial. $42,000 saved penny by penny, month by month, sacrifice by sacrifice. "I can start looking at venues this weekend," I told her excitedly. "I've been researching places within our budget that might be available next spring." There was a pause on the line. "Actually, Mom, Camilla's already talking about venues. She has connections at the Rosewood Club, and Nathan's cousin got married there last year. She says they might be able to squeeze us in because of the family relationship." That should have been my first warning sign. The weeks following Olivia's engagement were strange and unsettling. I called her regularly, asking when we could start planning together, suggesting coffee dates to look through bridal magazines or browse Pinterest boards. Each time, Olivia had an excuse ready. "Camilla's meeting with the Rosewood coordinator this week. Nathan and I are so busy with work. The Kensingtons have certain traditions we need to consider." Eventually, my calls started going straight to voicemail. I finally cornered Olivia at her apartment one Sunday afternoon in April. Spring sunshine poured through her kitchen windows as I set down the container of homemade beef stew I'd brought, her favorite comfort food since childhood. Honey, I've been looking at some venues that might work with our budget, I said, pulling out my tablet to show her the research I'd done. There's this beautiful converted barn about 30 minutes from here that has the rustic chic vibe you always said you wanted. Olivia barely glanced at my screen. She was focused on her phone, typing rapidly. Oh, Camilla already booked the Rosewood Club for June 15th, she said casually, still not looking up. They had a cancellation and she jumped on it. Richard made a donation to their building fund, so they're giving us priority treatment. My hand, still holding the tablet out for her to see, slowly lowered to the counter. You already booked a venue? Without even telling me? Olivia finally looked up, her expression a mixture of excitement and something else. Embarrassment, perhaps. The Rosewood is amazing, Mom. Nathan's sister had her reception there, and even celebrities have gotten married there. We're so lucky to get it. But I thought we were going to look at venues together, I said, my voice smaller than I intended. I've been saving for your wedding since you were 10 years old. Olivia sighed and set down her phone. I knew you'd react like this. This is exactly why I didn't tell you sooner. You always get so emotional about these things. Emotional? I repeated, stung by her dismissal. Camilla knows exactly what she's doing, Mom. She's on the board for like 3 major charity galas every year. Planning events is her thing. Olivia waved her hand dismissively. Besides, the Kensingtons are covering most of the costs. I want to contribute too, I insisted. I have $42,000 saved. Olivia's eyes widened momentarily before she let out a small laugh. Mom, that's sweet, but the venue alone is $60,000. Camilla's already hired a floral designer who did that senator's daughter's wedding last year. The beef stew I'd brought grew cold between us as Olivia pulled out her phone again, showing me photos of an elegant, sterile-looking ballroom with soaring windows and crystal chandeliers. Beautiful, yes, but nothing like the warm, intimate celebration I'd always imagined for her, for us. We've already hired the photographer too, Olivia continued, swiping through more photos on her phone. And Camilla found this incredible dress designer who usually has a 2-year waiting list, but she's friends with the owner. Each word felt like a small betrayal. Each decision made without me. Each memory created without my input. They piled up like stones, building a wall between me and the daughter I'd raised alone. I see, I said finally, struggling to keep my voice steady. So what's left for me to do? Olivia brightened, seemingly relieved that I was understanding. You can help with the rehearsal dinner. Well, not plan it. Camilla's already handling that with her event coordinator, but you can help with what, Olivia? The words came out sharper than I intended. Mom, don't be like this, Olivia sighed. It's just that Camilla knows what she's doing. The Kensingtons have been hosting society weddings for generations. Your taste is nice, but it's different. Different. The word hung in the air between us. Different meant not good enough. Different meant less than. Different meant the mother who had scraped and sacrificed for 18 years was now being sidelined because she didn't know the difference between ivory and a crew, or couldn't distinguish between a $500 and $5,000 floral arrangement. I understand, I said quietly, though I didn't. Not really. As I drove home that evening, tears blurred my vision so badly I had to pull over twice. The dashboard clock mockingly reminded me it was the 10th of the month, the day I normally transferred money into Olivia's wedding fund. 216 faithful deposits, some as small as $25 during the lean months when Olivia needed new school shoes, or when our ancient water heater finally gave up. All those sacrifices, all those dreams. And Camilla Kensington had swept them aside with her manicured hands and society connections. When I finally made it home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at my kitchen table, staring at nothing. If Olivia and Camilla thought I was just going to fade into the background of this wedding, They had severely underestimated the woman who had raised a daughter single-handedly while working full-time and putting herself through advanced nursing certification programs. I hadn't fought this hard for this long just to be dismissed as different. What Olivia didn't know, what she had never known, was that my resources weren't limited to my modest savings account. 20 years ago, long before Olivia had even started thinking about boys, I'd made a different kind of investment. My late father, Walter Reynolds, had been the head groundskeeper at Lakeside Manor for 35 years. He'd tended the magnificent gardens, maintained the historic fountains, and knew every inch of the property like the back of his hand. Olivia had grown up listening to her grandfather's stories about the grand old hotel, enthralled by tales of celebrity weddings and secret garden pathways. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What she didn't know was that before my father passed away, Eleanor Thornton, the elderly owner of Lakeside Manor, had approached me at his funeral. "Your father saved this place more times than I can count," she'd said, pressing a small envelope into my hands. The flood of '97 when he worked 3 days straight without sleep, the time he discovered that electrical fire before it spread to the main building, the garden renovation that put us on the National Registry. Mrs. Thornton's eyes had misted. Over. "Walter never wanted recognition, but I want you to have this. Consider it a standing invitation." Inside the envelope was a simple card embossed with Lakeside Manor's elegant logo and signed by Mrs. Thornton herself. The bearer of this card is entitled to one event of their choosing at Lakeside Manor, to be honored in perpetuity by current and future management. I'd kept that card in my safety deposit box for 20 years, taking it out occasionally just to run my fingers over the embossed lettering. It was my ace in the hole, my gift to Olivia when the time came. Lakeside Manor typically booked weddings 2 years in advance, with a minimum expenditure that would make most parents sweat. But with this card, I could give Olivia the wedding venue of her dreams, a place that held family history and meaning, without competing with Camilla's connections or wealth. The morning after my disappointing conversation with Olivia, I called Lakeside Manor and arranged a meeting with the current events manager, Sophia Chen. She was skeptical when I mentioned the card. Apparently, Mrs. Thornton had made some unusual promises in her later years, but her demeanor changed completely when I produced the actual document from its protective sleeve. "This is quite extraordinary," Sophia said, turning the card over in her hands. "Mrs. Thornton passed away 12 years ago, but her family has always insisted we honor her personal commitments." She tapped a few keys on her computer. "So you're looking at booking the grand ballroom for next June? That's our most popular month. We're fully booked already." I leaned forward. "The card says any event of my choosing. I'm choosing my daughter's wedding reception on June 15th. Sophia's expression wavered between professional courtesy and genuine regret. "I understand, but we have another wedding scheduled for that date, a very prominent family. I can offer you alternative dates." "I don't want an alternative date," I said firmly. "The card doesn't mention subject to availability. It says any event of my choosing. My father earned this." 20 minutes and one phone call to the Thornton family later, Sophia returned with a tight smile. "It seems you're right, Ms. Reynolds. The Thorntons have authorized us to accommodate your request." She hesitated. "We'll need to contact the other party and explain the situation. We can offer them an alternative date or another venue within our hotel group." "Thank you," I said, feeling both victorious and slightly guilty. I wasn't normally the type to pull rank or displace someone else's plans, but something had hardened inside me since yesterday. If Camilla could use her connections to take over my daughter's wedding, I could use mine to take it back. "There's one more thing," I added as Sophia prepared the preliminary paperwork. "I'd like to keep this arrangement confidential for now. My daughter is being influenced by her future mother-in-law. I'd like to surprise her with this gift when the time is right." Sophia nodded. though I could see curiosity in her eyes. Of course. We'll list the reservation under your name only, and we won't discuss it with anyone else without your permission. As I left Lakeside Manor that day, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: power. I had a secret weapon, a surprise that would remind Olivia who had been there for her all along. Camilla Kensington might have her designer flowers and society connections, but I had something more meaningful: a piece of Olivia's childhood, a connection to her beloved grandfather, and a stunning venue that would make the Rosewood Club look second-rate by comparison. I didn't call Olivia that evening. Instead, I poured myself another glass of wine and began making lists: guest lists, decoration ideas, menu options. For the first time since the engagement, I felt excited again. This would be my gift to Olivia. When the time was right, I would reveal that I'd secured the venue she'd dreamed about since childhood. Camilla would have no choice but to adapt her grand plans to my venue. For once, I would be calling the shots. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly things would unravel from there. 3 weeks passed, and Olivia still hadn't called. I tried, not to dwell on it, focusing instead on my secret plans. I met with Sophia Chen twice more, selecting linens and discussing menu options for a reception that Olivia didn't even know about yet. I found myself enjoying the subterfuge, imagining the look on Camilla's face when she realized her carefully orchestrated takeover had been outmaneuvered. Then came the invitation. Not a wedding invitation. That would have been too considerate. No, this was an invitation to a bridal inspiration luncheon at the Kensington estate, hosted by Camilla. The cream-colored card with gold embossing arrived on a Tuesday, nestled between my electric bill and a flyer for the local supermarket, as if it belonged with such ordinary correspondence. I stared at it for a full minute, running my finger over the embossed Kensington family crest. A bridal luncheon that I, the mother of the bride, was being invited to rather than helping to host. The audacity was breathtaking. I called Olivia immediately. I just received an invitation to a bridal luncheon for you, I said when she answered, at Camilla's house. Oh, good, it arrived. Olivia sounded genuinely pleased. Camilla's been working so hard on it. The chef is flying in from New York, and she's hired a string quartet for background music. Olivia, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, don't you think it's strange that I'm being invited to my own daughter's bridal luncheon? Shouldn't I be co-hosting it with Camilla? The silence on the other end was brief, but telling. Mom, Camilla has connections with all these amazing vendors. She knows exactly how these things should be done. I didn't want you to feel pressured or overwhelmed. Overwhelmed? By helping to plan my only child's wedding? The hurt was transforming into anger now, hot and clarifying. The wedding I've been saving for since you were in elementary school? That's not what I meant, Olivia said quickly. It's just that Camilla moves in these social circles. She knows all the right people. I don't want you to feel out of place. Out of place. At my daughter's wedding events. The word stung like a physical slap. I see, I said, my voice suddenly calm. And what role do you see me playing in your wedding, Olivia? Quiet observer? Supportive background character? Mom, please don't make this difficult. Just come to the luncheon. Wear something nice. Camilla mentioned the photographer from Modern Bride will be there. I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. Actually, honey, I've been meaning to tell you. I've got a surprise for you. I've secured Lakeside Manor for your reception. Remember how you always talked about getting married? There? I called in a favor, and they're giving us June 15th. We just need to cancel that other venue Camilla booked. The silence that followed was absolute. I could practically hear Olivia's thoughts racing, trying to process this unexpected development. You what? She finally managed. Mom, you can't be serious. We've already sent out save the dates with the Rosewood Club listed. Camilla's cousin is on their board of directors. She pulled major strings to get us that date. Well, I pulled A few strings of my own, I replied, unable to keep a note of triumph from my voice. Lakeside Manor has special meaning for our family. Your grandfather worked there for almost 4 decades. They've given us their best ballroom as a gesture of respect to him. Isn't that wonderful? Mom, Olivia's voice had taken on an alarming quality, something between panic and rage. You need to cancel that reservation immediately. We're not changing venues. Camilla has already hired the florist, the caterer. Everything is coordinated specifically for the Rosewood Club. The vendors can adjust, I said dismissively. Lakeside Manor is a much better venue anyway. The gardens are perfect for photography, and the ballroom ceiling has those crystal chandeliers you always loved. I don't care about chandeliers, Olivia exploded. This isn't about what I wanted when I was 10 years old. This is about my wedding, my actual wedding happening in 3 months, and you're trying to hijack it. Hijack it? I repeated incredulously. That's rich coming from the daughter who's let her future mother-in-law plan every detail without so much as consulting me, because Camilla knows what she's doing. She's not trying to turn my wedding into some nostalgic tribute to my childhood, Olivia shot back. She's helping me create the sophisticated event Nathan and I actually want. The words hit me like physical blows. Sophisticated. Actually want. The implication was clear. My vision for her wedding was childish, unsophisticated, unwanted. See? I said, my voice going very quiet. So Lakeside Manor isn't good enough for the new Olivia? The one who's marrying into the Kensington family? That's not what I said. Olivia sounded exhausted now. Look, I appreciate the gesture. I really do. But you need to cancel that reservation. We're getting married at the Rosewood Club. End of discussion. We'll see about that, I said, and hung up. Within 30 minutes, my phone was blowing up with texts and calls. First from Olivia, then from numbers I didn't recognize. Camilla, probably. And who knew who else from the Kensington contingent. I silenced my phone and poured myself a generous glass of wine. Let them panic. Let them scramble. For once, I wasn't going to back down quietly. The next morning, I awoke to 23 missed calls and 41 text messages. I scrolled through them as I sipped my coffee. From Olivia. Mom, please call me back. You're being ridiculous. From Olivia. Camilla is furious. She's talking about canceling the entire wedding. From Olivia. Nathan says you're trying to sabotage our relationship. Is that what you want? From unknown numbers. This is Camilla. Kensington. Call me immediately to discuss your inappropriate behavior. Sophia Chen from Lakeside Manor here. Mrs. Kensington has contacted us regarding your reservation. Please call when convenient. This is Richard Kensington, Nathan's father. We need to resolve this situation like adults. I deleted them all and drove to work, where I spent 12 hours focused on my patients rather than my personal drama. Hospital work had always been my sanctuary, the place where I was valued for my skills and experience, not judged for my lack of social connections or designer clothing. When I returned home that evening, there was a black Range Rover parked in my driveway. Camilla Kensington stood on my porch, a designer handbag hanging from her elbow, her pearl necklace gleaming in the porch light. Margaret, she said with a tight smile as I approached, I think it's time we had a chat, woman to woman. I considered telling her to leave, but curiosity won out. Come in, I said, unlocking my front door. My modest 3-bedroom house felt suddenly shabby under Camilla's appraising gaze. I watched her eyes catalog everything, the slightly worn sofa, the outdated kitchen cabinets, the family photos covering the walls. Tea? I offered, mostly to break the tension. No, thank you, Camilla said, perching on the edge of my sofa as if afraid it might soil her beige pantsuit. I'll get straight to the point. This venue situation needs to be resolved immediately. Olivia is devastated. Is she? I asked, remaining standing. Or are you devastated? Camilla's perfectly arched eyebrows rose slightly. I understand you're feeling marginalized in the wedding planning. That's natural for mothers of the bride, but causing this kind of disruption isn't helping anyone, least of all Olivia. I've been saving for Olivia's wedding for 18 years, I said. I've been dreaming about helping her plan it for just as long. And then you swept in and took over everything. The venue, the dress, the flowers, even the rehearsal dinner. What exactly was I supposed to do? Sit quietly in the corner and just be grateful for an invitation? Margaret, Camilla said, her voice taking on a condescending tone that made my teeth clench. Wedding planning is complex. It requires connections, experience, and a certain aesthetic sensibility. Nathan's family has expectations. There are traditions to uphold, social considerations. Social considerations? I repeated flatly. You mean I'm not good enough for your family? Camilla sighed dramatically. This isn't about you. It's about giving Olivia and Nathan the wedding they deserve. The wedding that reflects their future, not your past. Something snapped inside me. Get out, I said quietly. Excuse me? Get out of my house. My voice was deadly calm. You've made it abundantly clear what you think of me. Now I'm making it clear what I think of you. You're a snob, Camilla. You took advantage of a young woman's insecurities to push her mother out of one of the most important days of her life. You didn't do it for Olivia. You did it for yourself, to control the narrative, to make sure everything fit your precious aesthetic sensibility. Camilla stood up, clutching her handbag, like a shield. I should have known this would be unproductive. If you won't be reasonable, then perhaps it's best if you don't attend the wedding at all. I'll speak with Olivia. You do that, I said, holding the door open. And while you're at it, explain to her why the Rosewood Club suddenly won't return. Her call's about booking her wedding. Camilla froze. What are you talking about? I smiled thinly. I may not have your social connections, Camilla, but I have something more valuable at Lakeside Manor. I have history. My father worked there for nearly 4 decades. The owners owe me a favor, a big one, and they've chosen to honor that debt by giving me exclusive rights to June 15th. No amount of Kensington money or influence is going to change that. Camilla's face flushed with anger. You're bluffing. Call them, I challenged. Ask for Sophia Chen. She'll confirm that Lakeside Manor will be ready to host Olivia's wedding on June 15th, but only under my name, not yours. The venue is mine. Camilla, I chose it because Olivia loved it as a child, because it has meaning for our family, because it represents everything you've tried to erase from this wedding. Olivia's history, my contribution, our relationship before the Kensingtons came along. For once, Camilla seemed speechless. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked stiffly to her car without another word. I expected the full Kensington artillery to be deployed against me after that confrontation. Instead, what happened the next day caught me completely off guard. Olivia showed up at my door at 7 a.m., still in her pajamas, eyes red and puffy from crying. You were right, she said the moment I opened the door. Camilla's been controlling everything. Last night, after she came back from your house, she called me and said you were becoming a problem and suggested we might need to reconsider your role in the wedding. She actually used the phrase, minimized presence, about my own mother. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing against my shoulder like she used to do as a little girl. I guided her to the sofa, wrapping her in the throw blanket we'd picked out together years ago. I've been so stupid, Mom, Olivia hiccuped between sobs. I let Camilla take over because I wanted Nathan's family to accept me. I was so scared of not being good enough for them that I pushed you away. The one person who's always thought I was more than enough. I stroked her hair, my anger dissolving at the sight of her genuine distress. It's okay, honey. Wedding planning makes everyone a little crazy. It's not okay, Olivia insisted, wiping her eyes. Camilla's been making decisions without even asking what I want. She chose the Rosewood Club because Nathan's second cousin had her debutante ball there in 1998. Not because it means anything to us. The dress she picked makes me look like a cupcake. The florist she hired is doing all white flowers because color is tacky. She looked up at me, her eyes still swimming with tears. Can we really get Lakeside Manor for the reception? I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. Your grandfather made sure of it. He loved that place almost as much as he loved you. Olivia squeezed my hand. Tell me about Lakeside again. About Grandpa Walter and the secret garden paths. So I did. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting warm golden light across my living room, I told Olivia all the stories she'd loved as a child. About her grandfather's adventures at Lakeside Manor, about the celebrity weddings he'd helped prepare, about the time he'd saved a bride's veil from blowing into the fountain. That's the wedding I want, Olivia said finally. One with real stories behind it, one that means something. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of reclamations. Olivia called Camilla that same morning and firmly but politely informed her that the wedding would be moving to Lakeside Manor. Camilla protested, of course. There were deposits that couldn't be refunded, vendors who couldn't relocate, traditions that couldn't be broken. But Olivia stood her ground, supported by Nathan, who, to his credit, recognized how his mother had overstepped. It's our wedding, he told Camilla when she attempted to enlist his support. And Lakeside Manor is where Olivia wants to have it. That's all that matters to me. Camilla eventually backed down, though not without extracting certain concessions. She would still handle the rehearsal dinner, still have input on the guest list, still expect certain Kensington traditions to be honored. But the wedding itself, the venue, the flowers, the cake, the music, that belonged to Olivia again. And to me, as her mother and co-planner. We spent weekends visiting Lakeside Manor together, Olivia and I. Sometimes Nathan joined us, sometimes not. We walked the gardens where her grandfather had once tended roses, explored the ballroom where chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across the marble floor, and sat in the courtyard cafe planning seating arrangements and menu selections. Sophia Chen became our ally and friend, sharing stories about my father that even I hadn't heard. How he'd planted a special rose bush when Sophia's daughter was born. How he'd kept a notebook of every bride's favorite flower so he could make sure it was blooming somewhere on the property for their anniversary visits. Your dad understood that a wedding isn't just about one day, Sophia told us over coffee one afternoon. It's about creating a place where memories can take root and grow. Olivia's eyes had filled with tears at that. That's exactly what Mom's been trying to tell me all along. The wedding itself was magnificent, more beautiful than anything Camilla could have orchestrated, because it was infused with meaning at every turn. Olivia walked down an aisle strewn with petals from the same rose varieties her grandfather had planted decades earlier. The reception took place in a ballroom where her 8-year-old handprints were secretly preserved in a cornerstone, placed there during a renovation when my father had brought her to inspect his workplace. Camilla attended, of course, elegant, in designer silk and family pearls. She was polite, if somewhat reserved, but something had shifted in our dynamic. She regarded me with a new respect, not because I'd outmaneuvered her, but because she'd finally understood what Olivia had always known. That love and devotion aren't measured in social connections or brand names, but in years of sacrifice and in stories that bind generations together. After the cake was cut and the first dances completed, I found myself alone for a moment on the terrace overlooking the gardens my father had tended for so many years. The night air was perfumed with roses, and the sounds of celebration drifted through the open doors behind me. Olivia found me there, radiant in her wedding dress, not Camilla's choice, but a simpler, more elegant gown we'd discovered together at a small boutique. "Thank you, Mom," she said, linking her arm through mine, "for not giving up on me, for fighting for us, even when I was too blinded by Kensington glamour to see what I was losing." I squeezed her hand. "I'll always fight for you, Olivia. That's what mothers do." She leaned her head on my shoulder, just as she used to do when she was small. I know that now. I really do. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching the garden lights illuminate pathways my father had designed, surrounded by flowers he had planted. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of rightness, as if all the sacrifice, all the hurt, all the struggle had been leading to this precise point of completion. Camilla appeared in the doorway, hesitating when she saw us together. For a moment, I thought she might turn away. Instead, she approached slowly, something like humility in her usually confident stride. "The photographer is asking for the mothers of the bride and groom," she said. Then, with visible effort, "You've created something very special here, Margaret. Olivia is lucky to have you." It wasn't an apology. Camilla Kensington probably didn't have that word in her vocabulary, but it was an acknowledgement, and for now, that was enough. As the three of us walked back inside together, I realized that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating your opponent, but in transforming the battlefield entirely, turning competition into cooperation, resentment into respect, exclusion into belonging. The venue I had secretly reserved hadn't just secured my place in my daughter's wedding. It had secured my place in her life, reminding both of us that the bonds between mother and daughter, though sometimes stretched by circumstance or tested by outside influences, are ultimately strengthened by the truth of shared history and the power of unwavering love. The bridal luncheon at the Kensington estate was exactly as ostentatious as I'd imagined. Ivory tablecloths draped over a dozen round tables scattered across Camilla's immaculate garden. Centerpieces of white orchids and pale blue hydrangeas towered above bone china place settings. A string quartet played softly from a small gazebo, their melodies drifting through the perfumed air. Everything screamed old money and impeccable taste, Camilla's signature. I arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in the most expensive outfit I owned. A pale blue suit I'd splurged on for the hospital's fundraising gala last year. As I approached the entrance, I could see Camilla directing staff, pointing imperiously at various details that apparently didn't meet her exacting standards. "The napkins need to be refolded. Those aren't proper bishop's folds," she was saying to a harried-looking server. "And those water glasses need to be moved precisely 2 inches to the right of each setting." Olivia stood nearby, looking uncomfortable, in a white sundress that seemed to have been selected more for Camilla's approval than her own comfort. When she spotted me, relief flooded her face. "Mom, thank goodness you're here." She hurried over, embracing me with unexpected fervor. Up close, I could see the shadows under her eyes, poorly concealed with expensive makeup. "Everything looks beautiful," I said, trying to mean it. The setup was objectively stunning, but it felt sterile, more like a museum exhibition than a celebration of my daughter's impending marriage. Olivia's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Camilla's been working on it all week. The florist had to redo the centerpieces twice because the first ones weren't Kensington standard, whatever that means." Camilla materialized beside us, champagne, flute in one manicured hand. "Margaret, how nice of you to join us. I wasn't sure you would after our conversation." Her eyes flicked dismissively over my outfit before returning to my face with a practiced smile. "I wouldn't miss my daughter's bridal luncheon," I replied evenly, meeting her gaze without flinching. "Of course not," Camilla said. "Though I understand you've been quite busy making alternative arrangements." Before I could respond, guests began arriving. A parade of women in designer dresses and statement jewelry. Olivia was immediately swept away to greet Nathan's aunts, cousins, and family friends. I found myself alone, clutching a mimosa and trying not to feel like an interloper at my own daughter's celebration. I was midway through an awkward conversation with Nathan's great-aunt Judith about hospital administration when Camilla clinked her glass for attention. The garden fell silent as she took position at the head table, her pearl necklace catching the sunlight. "Ladies, thank you for coming to celebrate our dear Olivia." Camilla began, her voice carrying effortlessly across the garden. As you know, joining the Kensington family comes with certain traditions, expectations, and… She paused for effect. Responsibilities. Several women nodded knowingly. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Olivia has already shown such grace in embracing our ways, Camilla continued. The Rosewood Club has hosted Kensington celebrations for 4 generations, and next month, Olivia and Nathan will add their union to that distinguished history. My fingers tightened around my glass. She was deliberately bringing up the Rosewood Club, knowing full well about my reservation at Lakeside Manor. A toast, Camilla concluded, raising her glass, to Olivia, soon to be the newest Kensington bride. Everyone raised their glasses. I did too, but my eyes remained fixed on Camilla. This wasn't just a bridal luncheon. It was a power play, a public staking of claim. Olivia wasn't just marrying Nathan. In Camilla's mind, she was being absorbed into the Kensington dynasty. Throughout lunch, I was seated far from Olivia at a table with distant Kensington relatives who spoke primarily about people and places I'd never heard of. I pushed poached salmon around my plate and smiled politely at references to vacation, homes in the Hamptons, and family connections to European aristocracy. When the dessert course arrived, individual lemon soufflés that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget, Camilla stood again, this time with a large leather-bound album in her arms. "Ladies, I'd like to share something special," she announced. "The Kensington wedding album. Every Kensington bride for the past century has worn pieces from our family collection on her wedding day." Camilla opened the album to reveal photographs of stern-looking women in vintage wedding attire. With each turn of the page, she pointed out specific items: a diamond tiara, a lace veil, a sapphire brooch that had been passed down through generations. "And Olivia," Camilla said, her voice ringing with false warmth, "has agreed to continue this beautiful tradition by wearing the Kensington Diamond Suite for her ceremony at the Rosewood." All eyes turned to Olivia, who managed a small nod and smile that didn't reach her eyes. I could see it now, the invisible chains Camilla was wrapping around my daughter, link by link, disguised as tradition and privilege. I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment away from the suffocating atmosphere of Kensington superiority. Inside the marble-countered powder room, I leaned against the sink and took several deep breaths. This wasn't just about a wedding venue anymore. It was about Olivia's identity, her future, her very sense of self. When I returned to the garden, gift opening had begun. Olivia sat in a flower-adorned chair surrounded by elegantly wrapped packages. Camilla stood beside her, a small notebook in hand to record each gift and giver, no doubt for the precisely worded thank you notes she would later dictate. I watched as Olivia unwrapped monogrammed linens, crystal vases, and silver picture frames, all selected from the Kensington-approved registry Camilla had created. My own gift, a handmade quilt I'd commissioned from Olivia's favorite local artist, sat unopened at the bottom of the pile. When the luncheon finally concluded, I found Olivia alone for a moment near the garden entrance. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly, noticing the tight line of her shoulders under her pristine white dress. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then glanced around to ensure no one was within earshot. "It's just intense. Camilla has opinions about everything from the shade of my nail polish to which fork I use first." I squeezed her hand. "You know, it's still your wedding. You're allowed to have opinions, too." Olivia's eyes darted toward Camilla, who was instructing servers on the proper way to package leftover cake. It's easier to just go along with her ideas. She gets so disappointed when things don't go exactly her way. "And what about you?" I asked. "Are you disappointed?" Olivia bit her lip. "I just want everyone to be happy." "Including yourself?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. As I drove home from the Kensington estate, I tried to make sense of what I'd witnessed. The Olivia I'd raised had been spirited, opinionated, fiercely independent. The young woman at that luncheon seemed diminished somehow, as if Camilla's overbearing presence was slowly erasing the vibrant personality I'd nurtured for 25 years. I thought again about Lakeside Manor, about the reservation I'd made using my father's legacy. Was I any better than Camilla, imposing my vision on Olivia's wedding? The difference, I told myself, was meaning. Lakeside represented family, history, genuine sentiment, a place Olivia had genuinely loved. The Rosewood Club was just another status symbol in Camilla's collection. When I arrived home, I found Olivia sitting on my porch steps, still in her white sundress from the luncheon. "What are you doing here?" I asked, surprised to see her. "I thought you were having dinner with Nathan's family tonight." I told them, "I wasn't feeling well," she said, standing to hug me. "Can we talk about the venue situation?" My heart sank. Had Camilla sent her to convince me to back down? We went inside, and Olivia kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief, curling up on my sofa like she used to do as a teenager. "That luncheon was exhausting," she admitted. "Camilla insisted I write down what everyone wore so I don't commit the unforgivable sin of complimenting someone on a dress they've already worn to a previous Kensington event." I smiled despite myself. Heaven forbid. Olivia twisted her engagement ring, a massive diamond surrounded by sapphires that had once belonged to Nathan's grandmother. "Mom, about Lakeside Manor, I've been thinking, can you show me the place again? Before I make a final decision?" Hope fluttered in my chest. "Of course. We can go tomorrow if you'd like." The next morning, Olivia arrived dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, a stark contrast to the polished Kensington-approved wardrobe she'd been sporting lately. We drove to Lakeside Manor in comfortable silence, the radio playing softly in the background. The hotel looked even more magnificent in the clear morning light, its limestone facade gleaming, the famous gardens bursting with early summer blooms. Sophia Chen met us in the lobby, her professional demeanor softening when she recognized me. "Margaret, lovely to see you again," she said warmly before turning to Olivia. "And you must be the bride. Your mother has told me so much about you." "This place is even more beautiful than I remembered," Olivia said, gazing up at the ornate ceiling of the main lobby. Sophia led us through the hotel, pointing out architectural details and sharing historical anecdotes. Olivia grew more animated with each room we visited, asking questions about lighting options and acoustics. When we reached the main ballroom, the crown jewel of Lakeside Manor, she fell silent, taking in the soaring ceilings, the wall of windows overlooking the rose garden, and the magnificent crystal chandeliers. "This is where Dad proposed to you, isn't it?" she asked quietly. I nodded, surprised she remembered that detail from my stories. Right under the central chandelier. He was so nervous he dropped the ring and had to get down on his hands and knees to find it. Olivia laughed, a genuine, unrestrained sound I hadn't heard in months. And Grandpa Walter was watching from behind that pillar, right? Because he'd helped Dad set everything up. "That's right," I said, warmth spreading through me at the memory. "Your grandfather strung white lights all along that balcony. He said he wanted the ceiling to look like stars." Sophia excused herself to take a call, leaving us alone in the vast, empty ballroom. Olivia walked to the center of the polished floor, turning slowly to take in the space from every angle. "I remember coming here for your hospital's Christmas party when I was little," she said. "I told everyone my grandpa built this place, and you had to explain that he just took care of the gardens." I smiled at the memory. "You were so proud of him." "I still am," Olivia said softly. Then, with sudden decisiveness, "This is where I want to get married, Mom. Not the Rosewood Club. Here, where there's actual family history, not just Kensington tradition." Joy surged through me, quickly tempered by caution. "Are you sure?" "What? About Camilla's plans?" The vendors she's already booked? Olivia's expression hardened slightly. Camilla will have to adjust. It's my wedding, not hers. She took a deep breath. I've been letting her make all these decisions because it seemed easier than fighting, but I'm not happy with most of them. The dress she chose is nothing like what I wanted. The flowers are all wrong. Even the music she selected. It's all classical when Nathan and I wanted something more contemporary. I wanted to punch the air in triumph, but kept my expression neutral. Have you talked to Nathan about this? Last night, Olivia nodded. After I left your place, I went to his apartment and laid everything out. How unhappy I've been with the planning process. How Camilla has steamrolled over every idea I've had. She smiled, a hint of her old confidence returning. He was actually relieved. Apparently, he hates the Rosewood Club. Says it reminds him of boring family functions where he had to wear uncomfortable suits and wasn't allowed to touch anything. And he's okay with changing venues? Even with save the dates already sent? Olivia nodded firmly. He said he wants me to be happy, and if that means making some changes and dealing with his mother's disappointment, then that's what we'll do. She reached for my hand. I'd like you to help me plan the wedding. The real wedding. The one Nathan and I actually want. Not the one Camilla has been designing. I squeezed her fingers, overcome with emotion. I'd be honored. Sophia returned, tablet in hand. So what do we think of the ballroom? Is it still a contender? It's not a contender, Olivia said, then broke into a wide smile. It's the winner. We're booking Lakeside Manor for the wedding and reception. Sophia beamed. Wonderful. Let's go to my office and discuss the details. As we followed Sophia through the hotel corridors, Olivia linked her arm through mine. Thank you, she whispered, for not giving up on me, even when I was being an idiot. You weren't being an idiot, I assured her. Camilla Kensington is an overwhelming force of nature, and you were trying to fit into Nathan's world. I don't want to fit into anyone's world, Olivia said with renewed conviction. I want to create my own, with Nathan, with you, with the people who actually care about what I want, not just how things look to society. The meeting with Sophia went smoothly. We secured the June 15th date, discussed catering options, and began planning the layout for both ceremony and reception. Olivia was engaged and decisive, confidently expressing preferences that had been silenced under Camilla's influence. As we left Lakeside Manor, Olivia looked lighter, more like herself. Camilla is going to have a meltdown when I tell her, she said, but she didn't sound worried, just resigned to an unpleasant but necessary conversation. Would you like me to be there when you tell her? I offered. Olivia considered this, then shook her head. No, this is something I need to do. Myself. Besides, Nathan said he'd back me up. He's meeting me at his parents' house in an hour. I hugged her goodbye in the parking lot, feeling proud of the strong, self-assured woman she had always been beneath the veneer of Kensington-approved docility. Call me afterward, I said. No matter how it goes. I will, she promised. And, Mom? I was thinking, would you like to go dress shopping next weekend? Just the two of us? The simple question brought tears to my eyes. I'd love nothing more. After Olivia left, I didn't immediately drive home. Instead, I walked through Lakeside Manor's famous rose gardens, breathing in the fragrance of flowers my father had tended decades ago. Small plaques identified each. Variety, Moonlight Sonata, Peace, Julia's Rose, all selections he had personally cultivated over his long career. Near the central fountain, I found the Queen Elizabeth rosebush my father had planted the year Olivia was born. Its deep pink blooms were just beginning to open, reaching toward the sunlight with the same determined grace I'd seen in my daughter that morning. I sat on a nearby bench, overcome with memories and gratitude. Whatever happened with Camilla Kensington, whatever drama might still unfold, I had reconnected with my daughter in a fundamental way. The wedding would take place at Lakeside Manor, surrounded by my father's roses and family memories that transcended Kensington tradition. My phone rang shortly after 6 p.m. I braced myself when I saw Olivia's name, expecting tales of Camilla's outrage and manipulative tactics. "How did it go?" I asked cautiously. "It was weird," Olivia said, sounding bewildered. "Not at all what I expected." "Tell me everything," I said, settling deeper into my sofa. "Nathan and I arrived together, united front and all that," Olivia began. "Camilla and Richard were having drinks on the terrace. We announced that we'd made a decision about the venue, that we were moving the wedding to Lakeside Manor, and I braced for the explosion." "And?" I prompted when she fell silent. Camilla just nodded and said, "I suspected as much after Margaret mentioned it during our chat." Then she took a sip of her martini and asked if we'd considered how to inform the guests about the change of venue. I frowned, confused by this uncharacteristic reasonableness. "That's it? No arguments? No guilt trips?" "Oh, she got in a few subtle digs," Olivia clarified. Something about how Lakeside Manor was charming in a vintage way, and how she supposed family sentiment trumps practical considerations sometimes. But overall, she was surprisingly accommodating. "That doesn't sound like the Camilla Kensington I've come to know," I said suspiciously. "Right? That's what I thought too. But then, after dinner, when Nathan was talking to his dad about some work thing, Camilla pulled me aside and, 'Mom,' she apologized." "She what?" I nearly dropped my phone. "Well, in her way," Olivia amended. "She said she realized she'd been perhaps overly directive in the wedding planning, that she'd gotten carried away with creating the perfect Kensington event and hadn't considered that Nathan and I might have our own vision." I was speechless. Camilla Kensington admitting she'd overstepped. It seemed too good to be true. "There's more," Olivia continued. "She offered to help coordinate with all the vendors about the venue change. Said she'd personally call the Rosewood board to explain the situation and see about transferring our deposit to another event. Then she asked if I'd like her to speak with Sophia Chen about accommodating some of the design elements we'd already planned." "I don't understand," I said slowly. "What happened to transform Camilla from wedding dictator to supportive mother-in-law overnight?" Olivia laughed softly. "That's the weird part. Before we left, Richard pulled Nathan aside, and I overheard him say something about Camilla's sister showing up at their country club luncheon and making a scene. Apparently, Camilla's been doing the exact same thing to her sister that she's been doing to me, taking over her daughter's college graduation party planning and turning it into a Kensington showcase." "Ah," I said, understanding dawning. "Camilla got a taste of her own medicine?" "I think so," Olivia agreed. "Richard mentioned something about Camilla's sister using the phrase controlling nightmare in front of all their friends. Camilla looked pretty shaken by it." I couldn't help but smile at the image of Camilla Kensington being publicly called out by her own sister. Perhaps that explained her uncharacteristic capitulation regarding the venue change. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Well, Camilla is still going to be involved," Olivia said pragmatically. "She has connections we could use, and she does have a good eye for detail. But I made it clear that Nathan and I have final say on everything. Lakeside Manor is non-negotiable, and so is my dress choice, the music selection, and the menu." "And she agreed to all that?" "She did," Olivia confirmed, sounding as surprised as I felt. "Oh, and she asked if you'd be willing to meet with her tomorrow to discuss collaborative approaches to the planning process." I nearly choked. "She wants to collaborate with me?" "Those were her exact words," Olivia said, amusement evident in her voice. "I told her I'd ask you. So, will you meet with her?" Part of me wanted to refuse on principle, to savor my victory without offering an olive branch to the woman who had systematically excluded me from my daughter's wedding planning. But a larger part, the part that wanted Olivia's happiness above all else, recognized that ongoing hostility between her mother and future mother-in-law would only cause more stress. "I'll meet with her," I said finally. "But on neutral ground, not at her estate." "She suggested tea at Lakeside Manor, actually," Olivia said. "Said it would give her a chance to see the space through fresh eyes." I agreed to the meeting, though not without reservations. Camilla Kensington's sudden about-face seemed too convenient, too perfectly timed. But for Olivia's sake, I was willing to attempt civility. The following afternoon, I arrived at Lakeside Manor 15 minutes early, determined to establish myself as the host of this particular summit. I secured a table in the garden terrace overlooking my father's beloved Rose beds and ordered a pot of Earl Grey. My choice, my territory, my terms. Camilla arrived precisely on time, dressed in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She carried a sleek leather portfolio and a small gift bag with Lakeside Manor's logo. "Margaret," she greeted me with a nod that wasn't quite warm but lacked her usual condescension. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. Olivia thought it would be helpful." "For Olivia," I replied neutrally, pouring tea for us both. Camilla set the gift bag on the table between us. "A small token," she said, "for the misunderstandings between us." Cautiously, I opened the bag and removed a slender box. Inside was an antique silver letter opener engraved with Lakeside Manor's original logo from the 1920s. "It belonged to my grandfather," Camilla explained. "He was on the original investment board when Lakeside Manor was renovated after the war. I thought you might appreciate the connection, given your father's long service here." The gesture was unexpected, and I had to admit, thoughtful. Camilla Kensington had actually done research on something I might value rather than selecting a gift that reflected her own preferences. "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched by the history of the piece. "It's beautiful." Camilla nodded, accepting my gratitude with unexpected grace. Then she opened her portfolio, revealing meticulously organized sections labeled with different aspects of wedding planning. "I've taken the liberty of creating a consolidated planning document," she said, "all business now. I've noted which elements need to be reconsidered for Lakeside Manor versus the Rosewood Club, which vendors can easily transfer their services to the new venue, and which will need to be replaced." I leaned forward, examining her notes with professional appreciation. Whatever else one might say about Camilla Kensington, she was impressively organized. "I've also drafted a venue change announcement to send to guests," she continued, sliding a printed card across the table. "I thought we could review it together to ensure it reflects both families' perspectives appropriately." The card was elegant, but not ostentatious, explaining the venue change in terms that emphasized Olivia and Nathan's personal connection to Lakeside Manor, without any hint that the original choice had been Camilla's rather than the couple's. "This is very well done," I admitted. Camilla took a sip of tea. "I owe you an apology, Margaret." I nearly dropped my cup. "I'm sorry?" "An apology," she repeated, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "I've been overzealous in my involvement with Olivia and Nathan's wedding planning. My sister made that abundantly clear yesterday at the club in front of half of Hillcrest society." Ah, there it was. The real reason for this sudden change of heart. Public embarrassment was apparently Camilla Kensington's kryptonite. "Your sister. Sounds formidable?" I observed neutrally. A flicker of something like amusement crossed Camilla's face. "Diane has never been one to mince words. She called me a wedding hijacking control freak and suggested I seek therapy for my pathological need to manage everyone around me." Camilla grimaced at the memory. It was illuminating, to say the least. "Family has a way of holding up uncomfortable mirrors," I agreed, thinking of my own confrontations with Olivia. Camilla sighed, setting down her teacup with precision. "The truth is, I've been planning Kensington weddings for decades. My own, my brother's, various cousins. It's become somewhat of a role I play. The family representative ensuring everything meets Kensington standards." Standards can be important, I acknowledged cautiously. But so is recognizing when they're not the only consideration. Indeed. Camilla straightened her already impeccable posture. Olivia is not what I expected when Nathan brought her home. She's more independent, more opinionated than the typical Kensington spouse. She's my daughter, I said simply. Yes? Camilla agreed. I see that now, and I realize I've been attempting to remake her into something more familiar, more controllable. It wasn't conscious, but it wasn't fair either, to her or to you. I studied Camilla's face, looking for signs of insincerity or manipulation. To my surprise, I found none, only the slightly pained expression of a proud woman forcing herself to acknowledge error. I appreciate your honesty, I said finally. And I recognize that I've been defensive about my role in Olivia's wedding. The venue was my way of reclaiming some control. A clever strategy, Camilla admitted, the ghost of a smile playing at her lips. Utilizing your father's connection to secure Lakeside Manor was quite the chess move, Margaret. I underestimated you. Coming from Camilla, this was high praise indeed. I found myself smiling back, a tentative truce forming between us. So, where do we go from here? I asked. Camilla tapped the portfolio. I propose a division of labor, areas, where each of us can contribute our particular strengths to creating the wedding Olivia and Nathan actually want. We spent the next hour doing exactly that, identifying aspects of the wedding where Camilla's social connections and aesthetic expertise would be valuable, and areas where my knowledge of Olivia's preferences and family traditions would take precedence. Lakeside Manor would house both ceremony and reception, but Camilla would coordinate with the Rosewood Club about hosting the rehearsal dinner, a compromise that allowed her to maintain some connection to the venue she'd originally selected. By the time we finished our second pot of tea, we had a comprehensive plan that genuinely seemed to respect both families' contributions. It wasn't perfect harmony. Camilla couldn't help making subtle digs about budget constraints, and I occasionally had to firmly redirect her more extravagant suggestions, but it was workable. As Camilla gathered her materials to leave, she paused, her expression suddenly uncertain. There's one more thing, Margaret, about Olivia's dress. I tensed, prepared for a battle. The wedding dress had been one of Camilla's most heavy-handed interventions, a massive ball gown with a 10-foot train that Olivia had described as a meringue explosion. What about it? I asked cautiously. She doesn't like it, Camilla said bluntly. I can see that now. Would you help her find something she actually wants to wear? Something that reflects her personality, not Kensington tradition? The request was so unexpected, so contrary to everything Camilla had previously insisted upon, that I was momentarily speechless. I've already spoken with the designer about releasing the deposit, Camilla continued into my silence. It's not fair to make Olivia wear a dress she doesn't love on her wedding day, no matter how many Kensington brides have worn similar styles. I'd be happy to help her, I managed finally. We're actually planning to go shopping this weekend. Camilla nodded, then hesitated again. Would it be entirely inappropriate if I joined you? Not to take over, she added quickly, seeing my expression. Just to observe, to better understand Olivia's taste. I considered refusing. This dress shopping trip represented exactly the kind of mother-daughter bonding experience Camilla had previously denied me. But the uncertain look in her eyes, so at odds with her usual confidence, gave me pause. I'll ask Olivia, I said, neither agreeing nor refusing outright. It's her decision. Of course, Camilla agreed immediately. As it should be. We parted with a formal handshake that nevertheless felt like significant progress from our previous animosity. As I watched Camilla's sleek car pull away from Lakeside Manor's entrance, I marveled at the unexpected turns this wedding journey had taken. When I called Olivia to report on the meeting, she was equally astonished by Camilla's transformation, She actually suggested you help me find a different dress, Olivia asked incredulously. The Kensington ball gown was non-negotiable last week. She literally said it was the cornerstone of Kensington bridal tradition. People can surprise you, I said, still processing the change myself. Oh, and she asked if she could join our dress shopping trip this weekend. Wow. Olivia fell silent for a moment. What did you tell her? That it was your decision, I replied honestly. This is your wedding dress, Olivia. You get to decide who's part of that experience. Olivia sighed thoughtfully. You know what? Let's invite her, but let's make it clear. I'm choosing my own dress this time. No pressure, no Kensington traditions, just what makes me feel beautiful. Are you sure? I asked, surprised by her willingness to include Camilla after everything that had happened. I'm marrying into her family, Mom, Olivia said pragmatically. Nathan and I will be dealing with Camilla for decades to come. If she's genuinely trying to change her approach, I think we should encourage that. I couldn't argue with Olivia's wisdom. The wedding was important, but the relationships being formed would last far longer than a single day of celebration. That Saturday, Camilla met us at a small boutique I'd selected. Not the high-end designer salon where she'd previously taken Olivia, but a respected local shop known for their personalized service and diverse selection of styles. To my surprise, Camilla arrived without her usual entourage, dressed more casually than I'd ever seen her in slacks and a simple blouse. She greeted us both with a tentative smile that revealed genuine effort to moderate her naturally commanding presence. Thank you for including me, she said softly to Olivia. I promise to be on my best behavior. Olivia squeezed her future mother-in-law's hand. I appreciate you being here, Camilla. I know how much Kensington traditions mean to you. Some traditions deserve to be reconsidered, Camilla replied with a self-awareness I wouldn't have believed possible a week earlier. This is your day, Olivia. Your dress should make you feel like yourself, not like you're wearing a Kensington costume. The boutique owner, Sophia, welcomed us warmly and led Olivia to a private dressing area, while Camilla and I settled into comfortable chairs with champagne flutes in hand. No Kensington ball gown here, Camilla murmured, surveying the salon's selection of sleeker, more modern dresses. Does that bother you? I asked curiously. Camilla considered the question seriously. A week ago? Absolutely. Today I'm trying to expand my perspective. When Olivia emerged in the first dress, a simple sheath with delicate beading that highlighted her slender frame, I saw Camilla physically bite her tongue to stop herself from commenting immediately. She watched carefully as Olivia evaluated herself in the mirror, her expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. What do you think? Olivia asked, turning to face us both. What matters is what you think, Camilla replied before I could speak. How does it make you feel? Olivia blinked, clearly surprised by the question. It's nice, but I'm not sure it's me. Camilla nodded encouragingly. Then let's try something else. There's no rush. Over the next 2 hours, Olivia tried on at least 15 dresses, ranging from traditional to avant-garde. With each selection, Camilla grew more relaxed, offering observations rather than pronouncements, asking questions instead of dictating choices. When Olivia finally emerged in a vintage-inspired A-line with subtle lace detailing and a T-length hem, her face glowed with certainty before she'd even reached the mirror. This one, she said, twirling to see the dress from all angles. This feels like me. Tears pricked my eyes as I nodded in agreement. The dress was perfect, elegant but not pretentious, distinctive without being trendy, romantic without drowning her in excess fabric. Camilla rose from her chair and circled Olivia, slowly professional assessment in her gaze. The silhouette suits you beautifully, she said finally, and the shorter length will showcase those blue Manolo Blahniks you loved. You remembered those shoes? Olivia asked, surprised. Of course, Camilla replied. Just because I was pushing. The Kensington ball gown doesn't mean I wasn't paying attention to what actually made you smile. She touched the lace detail on the bodice. This is exquisite craftsmanship, quality that will stand the test of time without overwhelming your natural grace. Coming from Camilla, this was the highest possible endorsement. Olivia beamed, clearly, touched by her future mother-in-law's genuine approval. "So we're decided?" Sophia asked, smiling at our unanimous nods. "We are," Olivia confirmed, radiating happiness as she gazed at her reflection. "This is definitely the one." As Sophia helped Olivia change back into her regular clothes, Camilla turned to me with an expression that hovered between embarrassment and determination. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for giving me another chance, for not excluding me the way I tried to exclude you." "We both want the same thing," I replied, simply. "Olivia's happiness." Camilla nodded, a new respect in her eyes. "You've raised an extraordinary daughter, Margaret. Strong-minded, compassionate, authentic. Those aren't qualities I've always valued in the Kensington circle, but I'm beginning to see their worth." From Camilla Kensington, this was practically a declaration of devotion. I accepted it with a gracious nod, recognizing the effort it cost her to acknowledge my parenting success. When Olivia rejoined us, glowing with the satisfaction of having found her perfect dress, Camilla surprised us both by suggesting lunch at a small cafe nearby. Nowhere near the caliber of establishment she typically frequented, but cozy and welcoming. Over sandwiches and iced tea, the three of us began tentatively mapping out the next steps in the wedding planning process. Camilla offered her connections with top floral designers while I suggested incorporating my father's favorite, roses from Lakeside Manor's gardens. Olivia listened to us both, smiling at our efforts to collaborate rather than compete. By the time we parted ways that afternoon, something fundamental had shifted. We weren't friends. Camilla and I were too different in our backgrounds, values, and approaches to ever be close companions. But we had found common ground in our love for Olivia and our desire to create a wedding that truly reflected her relationship with Nathan. As Olivia and I walked to our cars, she linked her arm through mine and leaned her head against my shoulder. "Thank you," she said softly, "for fighting for me even when I was too confused to fight for myself." I kissed the top of her head, my heart full. "Always." "You know what I'm thinking?" Olivia said, her voice brightening with sudden inspiration. "What's that?" "We could incorporate Grandpa Walter's roses into the wedding somehow," Olivia said, her eyes alight with excitement. "Not just as decorations, but something more meaningful. What if we asked Lakeside's gardeners to create a special bouquet using the varieties he planted? Or maybe we could give rose seedlings as wedding favors." I smiled, touched by her desire to honor my father's legacy. He would have loved that. He always said flowers were meant to be shared, not just admired. Olivia squeezed my hand. "It's settled then. I'll talk to Sophia about coordinating with the gardening staff." She paused, her expression growing thoughtful. "You know, this whole experience has made me realize something important." "What's that?" I asked as we reached my car. "I've been so focused on becoming a Kensington that I almost forgot who I already am. A Reynolds, your daughter, Grandpa Walter's granddaughter." She looked at me with clear eyes. "I don't want to lose that part of myself when I marry Nathan." "You won't," I assured her. "The best marriages add to who you are, not subtract from it." Olivia nodded, seeming to absorb this wisdom. "That's why Lakeside Manor is the right venue. It represents both where I'm coming from and where I'm going. A place with history that still has room for new beginnings." As I drove home that afternoon, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced since before Olivia's engagement. The wedding planning was back on track, not just logistically, but emotionally. My daughter was reclaiming her voice. Camilla was learning to listen rather than command, and I was finding my proper place in the process, not sidelined, but not controlling either. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of collaborative planning. True to her word, Camilla used her formidable organizational skills and social connections to smooth the transition from the Rosewood Club to Lakeside Manor. She negotiated with vendors, reworked contracts, and managed to transfer most deposits without significant penalties. Whatever her faults, Camilla Kensington was undeniably effective when properly motivated. I focused on the personal touches, working with Lakeside's pastry chef to recreate Olivia's favorite childhood birthday cake as one tier of the wedding. Cake, coordinating with Sophia to ensure my father's favorite spots in the garden were highlighted in the ceremony layout, and helping Olivia select music that meant something to her and Nathan, rather than adhering to Camilla's classical-only Monday. Even Nathan seemed relieved by the new dynamic, confiding in me one afternoon when he stopped by to pick up Olivia. "I've never seen my mother compromise like this before. Usually, it's her way or no way at all." "People can surprise you when given the chance," I replied, thinking of my own evolving relationship with Camilla. "She respects you," Nathan said with surprising insight. "After your showdown over the venue, she realized you weren't going to be steamrolled like most people in her life. I think she secretly admires that." I laughed at the notion. "Admiration? Might be a stretch, but we've reached an understanding." Nathan shook his head. "Trust me, in Kensington terms, that is admiration. My mother doesn't understand people. She categorizes them as either useful or irrelevant. You've earned a third category, formidable ally." His words gave me a new perspective on Camilla's behavioral shift. Perhaps it wasn't just public embarrassment that had prompted her change of approach, but genuine respect for a worthy opponent. The thought was oddly comforting. 1 month before the wedding, Sophia Chen suggested we conduct a formal walkthrough at Lakeside Manor with all key vendors present. "It helps everyone visualize the flow of the day," she explained, "and it gives us time to address any logistical issues before they become problems." Camilla immediately took charge of coordinating schedules, ensuring that everyone from the florist to the lighting technician would be available. I focused on making sure Olivia and Nathan's preferences were properly communicated to each vendor, creating detailed notes about their priorities and non-negotiables. On the morning of the walkthrough, I arrived early to find Camilla already there, dressed impeccably as always, but with a notepad and practical flat shoes rather than her usual heels, a concession to the amount of walking we'd be doing throughout the venue. "Margaret," she greeted me with a brief nod. "I've taken the liberty of creating vendor information packets." She handed me a slim folder embossed with Olivia and Nathan's names. "Please review the timeline and let me know if you see any issues." I skimmed the meticulously organized schedule, impressed despite myself. Camilla had allocated appropriate time for photography in my father's rose garden, included the string quartet Olivia wanted for the ceremony rather than the full orchestra. Camilla had initially insisted upon, and even noted that the cake cutting should feature the song from Olivia's favorite movie rather than traditional wedding music. "This looks very thoughtful," I said, genuinely surprised by her attention to the details that mattered to Olivia and Nathan. "You've incorporated all their requests." Camilla straightened her already perfect posture. "That is the point of this exercise, isn't it? Their wedding, their preferences." Before I could respond, Olivia and Nathan arrived, followed by a parade of vendors, the florist with sample arrangements, the caterer with menu cards, the photographer discussing optimal timing for garden shots based on the sun's position. Sophia Chen orchestrated the group with professional efficiency, guiding us through each space while the vendors made notes and asked questions. As we walked through the grand ballroom, discussing table arrangements and dance floor dimensions, I noticed Olivia grow quiet, her eyes fixed on the central chandelier. "Everything okay?" I asked softly, touching her arm. "Better than okay," she replied with a smile. "I was just imagining Dad standing right there proposing to you. Grandpa Walter hiding behind that column watching it all happen." It makes everything feel so connected. Camilla, overhearing this exchange, paused in her conversation with the lighting designer. These historical connections are precisely what make Lakeside Manor special, she said, surprising me with her sincerity. The Rosewood Club has Kensington history, yes, but this place has Reynolds history. Your history, Olivia. That's far more meaningful for your wedding day. Olivia looked at Camilla with genuine appreciation. Thank you for understanding that. Camilla nodded, then turned back to the lighting designer with renewed focus. Now, about those uplights along the eye. Back wall, we need a warm amber, not that harsh golden yellow you're proposing. The walkthrough continued for nearly 4 hours, with each vendor presenting options, Olivia and Nathan making decisions, and Camilla and I offering support rather than direction. By the time we gathered for a late lunch in Lakeside Manor's restaurant, most of the major logistical questions had been resolved, and the wedding was taking clear shape. Not as a Kensington society event or a recreation of my own modest wedding, but as something uniquely Olivia and Nathan's. Over coffee and dessert, Camilla surprised me by raising her cup in a small toast. To effective collaboration, she said with the ghost of a smile. I must admit, Margaret, your insight into Olivia's preferences has been invaluable. This wedding will be more authentic because of your involvement. Coming from Camilla Kensington, this was high praise indeed. I returned the gesture with my own cup. And your organizational skills have saved us from what could have been logistical disasters. We make a surprisingly effective team. Camilla's smile widened fractionally. Indeed. Perhaps there's a lesson here about combining different strengths, rather than competing over who gets to be in control. Olivia and Nathan exchanged amused glances at this philosophical breakthrough from Camilla. Nathan raised his water glass. To both our mothers, he said warmly, for showing us that cooperation is possible even between the most unlikely allies. We all laughed. The tension that had marked the early planning stages now transformed into something approaching camaraderie. As we prepared to leave, Sophia pulled me aside. Your father would be proud, she said quietly. Not just of the wedding plans, but of how you've handled this situation. Walter always said you had a quiet strength that people underestimated. Her words touched me deeply. Thank you for saying that, and thank you for honoring his connection to this place. It means more than you know. As the weeks counted down to the wedding day, final details fell into place with surprising ease. Olivia's dress arrived and needed only minor alterations. The floral arrangements incorporating my father's special rose varieties were approved after a single sample viewing. Even the seating chart, typically a nightmare of family politics and social hierarchies, came together with minimal drama, thanks to Camilla's strategic diplomacy and my intimate knowledge of which relatives could not, under any circumstances, be seated near each other. 3 days before the wedding, Olivia called me sounding uncharacteristically nervous. Mom, can you come over? There's something I need to ask you. I arrived at her apartment 20 minutes later to find her surrounded by wedding gifts and half-packed boxes. She and Nathan would be moving into their new condo immediately after returning from their honeymoon. Everything okay? I asked, concerned by her anxious expression. Olivia took a deep breath. I've been thinking about the ceremony, about who walks me down the aisle. My heart constricted painfully. Olivia's father had never been part of her life. He'd walked away when she was an infant and never looked back. We rarely discussed him, and I'd assumed Olivia would either walk alone or ask her Uncle David, my brother, to escort her. I know Uncle David offered, Olivia continued, twisting her engagement ring nervously. And that would be fine, but... She looked up at me, her eyes suddenly determined. It should be you, Mom. You're the one who's been there every step of the way. You're the one who raised me, supported me, loved me unconditionally. I want you to walk me down the aisle. Tears sprang to my eyes before she'd even finished speaking. Oh, Liv? Is that weird? she asked anxiously. Camilla mentioned it's not traditional, but she actually said she thought it was appropriate given our history. I blinked in surprise. Camilla said that? Olivia nodded. She said traditions should serve people, not the other way around. That walking down the aisle is about being escorted by someone who loves you deeply, who has helped shape who you are. She said, "That's obviously you in my case." I sat down heavily on the nearest chair, genuinely moved by Camilla Kensington's unexpected support. "She's right," I managed through my emotion. "And yes, Olivia, I would be honored, beyond honored, to walk you down the aisle." Olivia threw her arms around me, and we held each other tightly, both of us crying now. "Thank you for everything, Mom," she whispered. "For fighting for me, for loving me, for showing me what real strength looks like." The day before the wedding, final preparations kicked into high gear. The rehearsal went smoothly, with Sophia Chen guiding the wedding party through their positions and timing. Camilla oversaw the rehearsal dinner at an exclusive restaurant near Lakeside Manor. Her territory once again. But she'd been careful to incorporate elements Olivia and Nathan had requested, including a slideshow of childhood photos I'd helped compile. As dinner concluded, Richard Kensington stood to offer the traditional father of the groom toast. Camilla, seated beside him, looked uncharacteristically emotional as her husband spoke of family connections, new beginnings, and the blending of two distinct family cultures. "The Kensingtons have done things a certain way for generations," Richard acknowledged, glancing at his wife with affection, "sometimes perhaps to a fault. But Olivia has brought a fresh perspective into our family, a reminder that traditions are meant to evolve, not constrain." He raised his glass to Olivia and Nathan. "May they create their own traditions while honoring the best of both their families." After dinner, Camilla approached me as guests mingled over coffee and dessert. "A moment, Margaret?" she asked, gesturing toward a quiet corner of the restaurant. I followed, curious about what final wedding details might need discussion at this late stage. Camilla reached into her handbag and withdrew a small velvet box. "I wanted to give you this privately," she said, handing it to me with uncharacteristic hesitation. "It's a small token of appreciation for your grace during this process." I opened the box to find a delicate silver bracelet set with small blue stones that matched the color scheme Olivia had chosen for the wedding. "It's beautiful," I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "But not necessary." "Perhaps not necessary," Camilla agreed, "but deserved. I behaved abominably at the beginning of this planning process, Margaret. My need to control everything nearly cost Olivia the wedding she actually wanted and nearly deprived you of the role you deserved in creating it." I studied Camilla's face, seeing real regret there. "We both had to adjust our expectations," I said diplomatically. "Yes, but my adjustments were long overdue." Camilla's perfect posture softened slightly. "My sister Diane says I've been compensating for my own disappointing wedding for decades, projecting onto each family bride the perfect Kensington wedding I thought I wanted but never quite achieved." This personal revelation from the normally reserved Camilla surprised me. "Was your wedding not what you wanted?" A flicker of old pain crossed her face. "It was exactly what my mother-in-law wanted, which wasn't at all what I had dreamed of." "But in those days, Kensington traditions weren't questioned," she smiled ruefully. "I've spent 30 years ensuring every Kensington wedding met the standard without ever asking if the standard itself made sense." "Until Olivia," I observed. "Until Olivia," Camilla agreed. "And until you stood your ground about Lakeside Manor. It was illuminating to be on the receiving end of the very treatment I'd given to you." She gestured toward the bracelet. "Hence a peace offering, and my sincere thanks for helping me see beyond my own rigidity." I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, strangely moved by this glimpse of Camilla's vulnerability. "It seems we've both learned something from this experience." "Indeed." Camilla straightened, her moment of openness passing. Now, about tomorrow's timeline. The hairstylists are arriving at 9, which should give us ample time before the noon ceremony. I've arranged for a light breakfast to be served in the bridal suite. And just like that, she was back to her efficient, organizing self, but with a new awareness of boundaries that hadn't existed before. I listened to her plans, offering input where appropriate and marveling at how far we'd come from our initial power struggle. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and perfect, as if even the weather was cooperating with our carefully laid plans. I arrived at Lakeside Manor at 8:30, carrying Olivia's dress in its protective bag and a small case containing my father's pocket watch, which would be pinned inside Olivia's bouquet as her something old. The bridal suite was a flurry of activity: hair, stylists setting up their equipment, makeup artists arranging their palettes, Olivia's bridesmaids already in matching robes, sipping mimosas and taking selfies. Camilla arrived moments after I did, carrying elegant gift bags for each bridesmaid and a special envelope for Olivia. "You're something blue," she explained, handing the envelope to my daughter. "I hope it's acceptable." Olivia opened it to find a vintage sapphire hairpin. "Camilla, it's stunning." "It was my grandmother's," Camilla said with uncharacteristic shyness. "She wore it at her wedding in 1932, right here at Lakeside Manor, actually. I thought it might complement your Reynolds. Family connections to this place." Olivia embraced her future mother-in-law with genuine affection. "It's perfect. Thank you." Camilla blinked rapidly, clearly fighting unexpected emotion. "Well," she said briskly, recovering her composure, "let's get you ready to become a Kensington, shall we?" The next few hours passed in a blur of preparations. Olivia's, hair styled in loose waves adorned with Camilla's sapphire pin, her makeup enhancing rather than masking her natural beauty, bridesmaids being laced into their dresses, photographers capturing every moment. Camilla and I moved in coordinated efficiency, each handling different aspects of the preparation without stepping on each other's toes. At 11:30, with the ceremony fast approaching, Camilla discreetly left to check on Nathan and the groomsmen, while I helped Olivia into her dress. As I fastened the delicate buttons down her back, I was struck by a wave of memory. This grown woman before me had once been a tiny girl spinning in princess dresses, begging me to, "Do the buttons, Mommy." "You look absolutely beautiful," I said, my voice catching as Olivia turned to face me in her completed bridal ensemble. "Do you think Grandpa Walter would have approved?" she asked softly. "He would have been so proud," I assured her, adjusting her veil. "Not just of how you look, but of who you are. Strong enough to stand up for what you want, wise enough to compromise when it matters, kind enough to bring people together even when they start at odds." Olivia hugged me carefully, mindful of her dress and makeup. "I learned all that from you, Mom." A knock at the door interrupted our emotional moment. Sophia Chen peeked in, looking elegantly professional in a tailored suit. "It's time," she said with a warm smile. "The guests are seated, the music has started, and a very nervous groom is waiting at the altar." Olivia took a deep breath, suddenly serious. "This is really happening." "It really is," I confirmed, offering my arm as we had practiced. "Ready to walk down the aisle with your old mom?" She smiled, slipping her arm through mine. I can't imagine doing it with anyone else. We made our way to the garden where the ceremony would take place. The setting was breathtaking. Rows of white chairs arranged beneath flowering trees, an aisle carpeted with petals from my father's roses, and at the end, a simple arch entwined with greenery and white blooms. Through the gap in the seating, I could see Nathan standing at the altar, looking handsome and terrified in equal measure, with his best man nervously shifting beside him. The string quartet began playing the piece Olivia had selected, not the traditional wedding march, but a gentle melody that had been my father's favorite. As we prepared to step onto the petal-strewn aisle, Camilla appeared at my side, impeccable, in a pale blue dress that complemented rather than competed with my own outfit. "Everything is perfect," she whispered, straightening Olivia's veil one last time. "Absolutely perfect." Then, to my surprise, she squeezed my arm briefly. "Well done, Margaret. To both of us, actually." Before I could respond, the music shifted, signaling our cue. With Olivia's arm securely linked through mine, we began the walk down the aisle, passing guests who smiled and sometimes wiped away tears, moving steadily toward Nathan, whose face transformed with love and wonder as he caught sight of his bride. In that moment, all the planning conflicts, all the power struggles, all the compromises and frustrations of the past months faded into insignificance. What mattered was Olivia's happiness, radiating from her like sunlight. Nathan's devotion, visible in every line of his body as he watched her approach, and the beautiful celebration we had created together. Not a Kensington spectacle, not a Reynolds family reunion, but a genuine expression of two people joining their lives in a place that honored both their pasts and their future. As we reached the altar and I prepared to give Olivia's hand to Nathan, I caught Camilla's eye in the front row. She nodded slightly, a gesture of mutual respect and shared accomplishment. We had both gotten what we truly wanted, not control over the wedding itself, but the joy of contributing meaningfully to a day that would remain in our family memories forever. The celebrant's voice rang out clear and warm. "Who gives this woman to be married to this man?" I smiled at Olivia, at Nathan, and finally at Camilla before answering with perfect confidence. "Her mother does, with love and blessing." As I took my seat in the front row, Camilla discreetly passed me a tissue for the tears I hadn't realized were falling. The ceremony proceeded beautifully, Olivia and Nathan exchanging heartfelt vows they had written themselves, the exchange of rings, the celebrant's words of wisdom about marriage as a partnership of equals rather than a merging of identities. When Olivia and Nathan were pronounced husband and wife, the guests erupted in applause, and I found myself joining hands with Camilla in a spontaneous gesture of shared joy. As the newlyweds processed back down the aisle, showered with rose petals and beaming with happiness, Camilla leaned toward me. "I believe we've managed to create something rather extraordinary here," she said. Her usual imperial tone softened, with genuine emotion. "Yes," I agreed, watching Olivia's radiant face as she and Nathan paused to embrace Richard at the end of the aisle. "I believe we have." The reception that followed was everything Olivia and Nathan had envisioned. Elegant, without being stuffy, personal without being casual, a perfect balance of Kensington sophistication and Reynolds warmth. Lakeside Manor's ballroom glowed with amber lighting that made the crystal chandeliers sparkle like stars, just as my father had once created for my own engagement years ago. Olivia and Nathan's first dance was to the song that had been playing. When they met, not a classic ballroom selection Camilla would have chosen, but a contemporary piece that had them laughing and whispering to each other as they moved across the floor. When Richard led Camilla onto the dance floor for the parents' dance, I felt a momentary pang of being the odd one out, until Nathan approached me with an extended hand. "May I have this dance?" he asked formally, but with genuine warmth. "Since I now have two mothers, it seems only right that I dance with both of them." Touched by his thoughtfulness, I accepted his hand and joined him on the dance floor, where Camilla graciously shared the spotlight that would traditionally have been hers alone. As we danced, Nathan thanked me not just for raising Olivia to be the woman he loved, but for fighting for the wedding that truly reflected their relationship. "Camilla would have steamrolled us completely if you hadn't stood your ground about Lakeside Manor," he admitted with a rueful smile. "You gave Olivia permission to speak up about what she really wanted, not just what she thought would please the Kensington side of the family. Sometimes we all need a reminder that it's okay to advocate for ourselves," I replied, thinking of my own journey through this process. As the evening progressed, I found myself observing the results of our collaborative planning with deep satisfaction. Kensington cousins were chatting comfortably with my hospital colleagues at mixed tables Camilla and I had carefully arranged. Olivia's childhood friends were teaching Nathan's business associates how to do the electric slide. The cake, a perfect compromise between Kensington elegance and Reynolds flavor preferences, was being served to universal acclaim. Near midnight, as the celebration showed no signs of winding down, I stepped out onto the terrace for a moment of quiet reflection. The garden below was illuminated with thousands of tiny lights, transforming my father's beloved rose beds into something magical and dreamlike. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Camilla's voice came from behind me. She joined me at the balustrade. 2 champagne flutes in hand, she offered one to me. "A toast seems appropriate." I accepted the glass with a smile. "What shall we drink to?" Camilla considered for a moment, uncharacteristically thoughtful. "Two unlikely alliances," she suggested finally. "And to the wedding neither of us initially envisioned, but both of us helped create." "Two unlikely alliances," I echoed, clinking, my glass against hers. We sipped in companionable silence, watching the party continue through the ballroom's windows. Olivia and Nathan were surrounded by friends on the dance floor, laughing as they attempted some complicated group dance. "She looks happy," Camilla observed softly. "Truly happy. Not just bride on her wedding day happy, but deeply content with the choices she's made." "Yes," I agreed. "They both do." Camilla turned to face me directly. "I owe you an apology, Margaret. A real one, not just the diplomatic concessions I've been making throughout this process." I raised an eyebrow, surprised by her candor. "You've already apologized several times, actually." "For the wrong things," Camilla said with unexpected humility. "I apologized for being controlling about the wedding details, for overshadowing your role as mother of the bride, but I never properly acknowledged the deeper offense, which was—" She paused, seeming to search for the right words. "I judged you," Camilla said simply. "From the moment Olivia brought Nathan home and mentioned her mother was a hospital nurse from a modest background, I made assumptions about your taste, your capabilities, your value. I decided you couldn't possibly understand what a Kensington wedding should be, so I excluded you entirely rather than risking your input." The honesty of her self-assessment was startling. "That's remarkably self-aware, Camilla." She smiled faintly. "My sister Diane has been rather relentless in her feedback about my character flaws since our confrontation at the club. It's been uncomfortable but illuminating." She looked out at the garden again. "The irony, of course, is that your vision for this wedding, centered on Lakeside Manor, incorporating family history and personal meaning, was ultimately far more elegant and significant than my standardized Kensington production would have been." I considered her words carefully. "I think the final result is better than either of us would have created alone. Your attention to detail and social graces, my focus on personal significance, together, they created something neither of us could have achieved separately." Camilla nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's the lesson here, not just for wedding planning, but for family relationships going forward." She gestured toward the ballroom where Olivia and Nathan were now gathered with friends for photographs. "Those two are going to need both of us in their lives, your emotional wisdom and my practical pragmatism." "Are you suggesting we continue our unlikely alliance beyond tonight?" I asked, amused by the concept. "I'm suggesting we've proven we can work together effectively when motivated by common purpose," Camilla replied with diplomatic precision. She hesitated, then added more personally, "and that perhaps I've gained a certain respect for your approach to life that I didn't anticipate." From Camilla Kensington, this was practically a declaration of friendship. I raised my glass again. "To continued effective collaboration, then, for Olivia and Nathan's sake." Camilla clinked her glass against mine. "For their sake," she agreed, "and perhaps occasionally for our own." As we rejoined the reception, I caught Olivia's eye across the ballroom. She took in the sight of Camilla and me returning together from the terrace, champagne glasses in hand, and her face lit up with a smile of pure delight. She nudged Nathan, who followed her gaze and gave us a surprised but pleased thumbs up. In that moment, I realized that perhaps the greatest gift we had given Olivia and Nathan wasn't Lakeside Manor with its crystal chandeliers and historic gardens, or the perfectly coordinated color scheme, or even the meaningful family touches woven throughout the day. It was the example of two strong-willed women learning to respect each other's strengths, to compromise without surrendering identity, to transform competition into collaboration. Their married life would undoubtedly face challenges that would require exactly these skills. By modeling this unexpected alliance, Camilla and I had provided them with something far more valuable than the perfect wedding day, a template for navigating the complex family dynamics that lay ahead. As the last guests departed and the cleanup crew began discreetly transforming the ballroom back to its original state, Olivia and Nathan found me by the grand staircase, both still glowing with happiness despite the late hour. "Mom, we can't thank you enough," Olivia said, embracing me tightly. "Everything was absolutely perfect." "More than perfect," Nathan agreed, his arm around Olivia's waist. "Lakeside Manor was the right choice. It felt like us, somehow." I smiled, emotions still running close to the surface after such a momentous day. "I'm just happy you're happy." "We have something for you," Olivia said, exchanging a meaningful look with her new husband. "A thank you gift that doesn't begin to cover everything you've done." Nathan produced a small envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. "We wanted to give this to you privately before we leave for the honeymoon." Inside was a reservation confirmation for Lakeside Manor's famous presidential suite for the coming weekend, with the full spa package included. "After all the wedding stress, we thought you deserved some pampering," Olivia explained. "This is incredibly generous," I said, genuinely moved. "But your wedding was gift enough. Seeing you both so happy." "Mom," Olivia interrupted gently, "just say thank you and enjoy it. You've earned this, more than earned it." I hugged them both, overwhelmed with gratitude and pride. "Thank you. I'll treasure this." As they prepared to leave, Olivia asked, "Will you be okay getting home tonight?" "It's so late." "Actually," I replied with a small smile, "Camilla suggested I stay at Lakeside Manor tonight. She arranged a room for me and for herself as well. Said it made more sense than driving home at this hour." Olivia's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Camilla suggested you stay? And she's staying too?" "I know," I laughed softly. Unlikely alliance indeed. After one final round of hugs, Olivia and Nathan departed for their bridal suite, leaving me alone in the grand foyer. Camilla appeared. A moment later, her perfect posture showing no signs of fatigue despite the long day. "They've gone up?" she asked, gesturing toward the newlyweds' retreating figures. I nodded. "They seem very happy." "As they should be," Camilla replied with satisfaction. "The wedding was an unqualified success." She glanced at the envelope in my hand. "Ah, they gave you your gift." "You knew about this?" I asked, surprised by her involvement. Camilla's lips curved in a small smile. "It may have been my suggestion. The presidential suite seemed appropriate for the mother of the bride who secured Lakeside Manor in the first place." She consulted her watch. "Your room should be ready. 7th floor, garden view." I took the liberty of having your overnight bag delivered there earlier. The realization that Camilla Kensington had not only thought of my comfort, but had actually planned for it left me momentarily speechless. "That was very considerate, Camilla." "Practical," she corrected, but without her usual sharpness. "It's nearly 2 out in the morning. The last thing any of us needs is to be driving home exhausted." As we rode up in the elevator in comfortable silence, I reflected on how dramatically our relationship had evolved over the course of planning this wedding. From open hostility to grudging cooperation, to something approaching mutual respect, it was a transformation I couldn't have imagined when Camilla had first suggested I could help by staying out of the way. The next morning dawned clear and beautiful. I dressed carefully in the casual outfit I'd packed and made my way down to the garden room at precisely 9 where Camilla was already seated at a table overlooking the rose garden. "Good morning, Margaret," she said, setting aside her tablet as I approached. "I hope you slept well." "Wonderfully," I replied, taking the seat across from her. "The beds here are heavenly." Camilla nodded in agreement. Lakeside Manor has always excelled at comfort without sacrificing elegance. "Coffee?" I accepted the cup she poured, adding cream and sugar while Camilla sipped hers black. "I took the liberty of ordering for us," she explained. "Lakeside's breakfast soufflé is not to be missed, and their house-made pastries are exceptional." "That sounds perfect," I said sincerely. "Thank you." As our breakfast arrived, delicate soufflés accompanied by perfectly flaky croissants and seasonal berries, Camilla surprised me with an unexpected proposal. "The Kensington Foundation has been looking to expand its healthcare initiatives," she said, stirring her coffee. "Given your experience in hospital administration, I wondered if you might be interested in joining our advisory committee. It would give Olivia a way to bridge her two worlds, seeing her mother involved in Kensington philanthropic efforts while utilizing your professional expertise." I nearly choked on my soufflé. "You want me to join a Kensington committee? Is that so surprising?" Camilla asked with a raised eyebrow. "You've demonstrated considerable strategic thinking and resilience during this wedding planning process. Those qualities would be valuable to our healthcare initiatives." "I'm flattered," I said honestly, "but I don't have experience with high-level philanthropy." "You have expertise in healthcare operations and patient needs," Camilla countered. "That's precisely what our committee lacks. Someone who understands the practical realities beyond the financial abstractions." She added with surprising candor, "Besides, I found our collaboration unexpectedly effective. I see no reason why it shouldn't continue in other contexts." Camilla Kensington was actually proposing we continue working together voluntarily after the wedding was over. It was perhaps the most astonishing development in a season full of surprises. "I'll consider it," I said carefully. "It would depend on the time commitment and how it fits with my hospital responsibilities." "Of course," Camilla nodded. "The committee meets quarterly, with some email correspondence between meetings. Nothing too onerous." She reached into her handbag and produced a slim folder. "Here's some information about the Foundation's current healthcare initiatives. Review it at your leisure." As I accepted the folder, I was struck again by Camilla's thoroughness. She'd clearly been planning this invitation before knowing how the wedding would unfold or how our relationship would evolve. In that moment, looking across the table at a woman I'd once considered my natural adversary, I felt a sense of possibility I hadn't anticipated. Our unlikely alliance, born of conflict and forged through compromise, had somehow created a foundation for something neither of us could have predicted, a genuine connection that transcended our differences. The wedding venue I had secretly reserved hadn't just given Olivia the perfect place to celebrate her marriage. It had created a bridge between two families, two worldviews, two approaches to life that might otherwise never have found common ground. In fighting for my place in my daughter's wedding, I had ultimately helped create something far more valuable than a perfect celebration, a foundation for ongoing family connections that would endure long after the last thank you note had been sent. Sometimes the most powerful act isn't grand defiance or dramatic confrontation, but simply standing firm in your own worth and waiting for the world to readjust its expectations accordingly. The wedding venue I had secretly reserved hadn't just been a location for a celebration. It had become the catalyst for a transformation that none of us, least of all Camilla Kensington, could have predicted. And in that unexpected outcome lay the true gift, the reminder that even the most firmly established patterns can be rewritten when someone is brave enough to challenge them. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.